my screen. Okay, great. Thank you. So like we talked about before, you all have had some really nice presentations today about physical literacy, about modifications and accommodations, all in our adapted world. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about games and activities to support early childhood motor development. And most of this comes from my previous experience teaching preschool adapted PE in Texas. So you'll see some nice little pictures and videos to give you some examples of this early childhood motor development. Today, we are going to talk about the early childhood lifespan stage, what ages that covers and what that looks like. We'll discuss motor development aspects related to children with disabilities. We will describe and view adapted physical activity programming for preschoolers, and then I'll share some resources to support early childhood motor development. So a little bit about early childhood, making sure we are all on the same page. Early childhood is defined as the period from birth to 8 years old, and it's a time of remarkable growth with brain development at its peak. During this stage, children are highly influenced by their environment and the people around them. So it's really important that as adaptive physical educators and APA professionals that we spend time to really develop these foundational motor skills for our young children, especially children with disabilities. When looking at that early childhood lifespan stage, we're looking at these different kind of stages of development where we start with prenatal, of course, and then get into our infant years, toddler years, preschool years, and then school age years. So our focus is going to be on this toddler preschool age to really help prepare our students to be ready for school age. So looking at physical activity across the lifespan, our focus should really be on those fundamental motor skills. We're helping our students gain those foundational skills to be able to participate in physical activity for a lifetime. We're helping with those orientation skills, locomotor and ball skills, play skills, and water readiness. Thinking about motor development for our early childhood lifespan stage, there is so much going on. Like we said before, there's a ton of brain development happening, and that cognition is really heightened in early childhood. Our young children, preschoolers, are like little sponges. They're going to soak up everything that's happening around them, and that happens in their cognition, in that social and emotional development area. Their speech and language is developing, their fine motor skills and gross motor skills. As adapted physical education specialists, we are focused on those gross motor skills. That's not to say that we don't take into consideration all of the other areas of development, because a well-rounded program would address all of these areas of development. However, our main focus is going to be those gross motor skills. When looking at gross motor development, we want to see what our students can do at each of these different levels. So starting at 2 years of age, we're getting to see our students starting to run, walk up and down stairs, jumping, balancing on one foot, standing on their toes, lots of different little gross motor movements that we're focusing on from 2 to 3 to 4 and into 5 years old. Now, when you think about children with disabilities, some of these motor development skills might be delayed. So that's where we come in to really help bridge that gap and provide interventions to support gross motor development, so we can really give our students the skills that they need to be successful to move around. I heard someone earlier talking about physical literacy and this idea that we need to build these foundational skills so that our students can participate in these activities for lifetime physical activity. So again, if you can't run, then you're not going to be able to play soccer, basketball, volleyball, track and field, squash, badminton, rugby, and tennis. Same idea with throwing and swimming. So we really have to focus on these foundational skills to help set our children up for success. This is a nice little developmental checklist that kind of breaks down different motor skills, so you can see what is appropriate at each different grade level. We really want to focus on what is developmentally appropriate for our students so we know what we should be teaching them. Looking specifically at gross motor development, our infants and toddlers start with these spontaneous movements, then they get into some reflexes, and then we get into motor milestones. So once our students are at the point where they are gaining motor milestones, that happens when there's this major developmental task of a period that depends on the movement of their muscles. So they have to be well organized to be able to do a lot of these gross motor checklist items. So ideally by 1 years old, a student will be able to walk without support, and that's for children without disabilities. So then when we consider our students with disabilities, we've got to take it a little step back and make sure we're helping them to reach these motor milestones like walking, running, balancing, skipping, jumping, all of those things. Specific to early childhood and pre-K activities, this is what we want to focus on. So we want to start with those fundamental motor skills. Earlier today, Melissa and Lisa spoke about how to modify a lot of these fundamental motor skills. So we definitely want to take that into consideration for our preschoolers. We want to make sure that we're setting these kids up for success. So we do that by providing accommodations and modifications that help them gain the skills they need to for further on in their life. So again, those fundamental motor skills would be those common motor activities with specific observable patterns. We also want to teach those orientation skills, which is the ability to know where you are and where you want to go. So looking at ourselves in space in relation to other people or our environment. We're working on those locomotor skills and ball skills. So locomotion, moving from one space to another, ball skills, learning how to manipulate an object with an object or with themselves. We really want to focus on these play skills. So at that early childhood and pre-K levels, we want our kids to be able to play and play for enjoyment. To do that, they have to have those foundational skills to be successful. When we teach those play skills, we want to teach our students to have the ability to plan and sequence these play activities, figure out how to problem solve challenges, and really generalize their skills from one setting to another. Another thing we need to focus on is water readiness. So we want to prepare our pre-Kers for aquatic activities. That might look different at schools compared to community-based settings, but again, we want to focus on safety and get our students ready to be in the water. So breaking down these fundamental motor skills a little bit closer, we want to look at those stability movements, and then we can pair them with the locomotor skills and ball skills to really set them up to be lifelong learners or lifelong movers and really build that idea of physical literacy. So for our fundamental motor skills, we're looking at those non-locomotor movements of how we kind of move our body in a stationary setting. And then we can combine them with those locomotor skills and those ball skills. So some ideas or examples of these fundamental movement skills would be walking, running, skipping, jumping, swimming, skating, cycling, throwing, catching, striking, trapping, kicking. These are just a couple examples. There are a lot more that we are teaching in our classes, but this kind of gives you an idea of what our classes will focus on, really figuring out how to break down these skills and help our students understand and learn how to use them. When we think about orientation, we want to make sure that we're teaching our students and giving them the ability to know where they are and where they want to go and how they can achieve that. So we're talking about their general space, their self space, moving and integrating with different peers. Sometimes our students with disabilities have a hard time moving around in space. They might be bumping into the wall, they might run into each other, they might have trouble with transitions in doorways or with steps. So teaching our students where they are in space and how to really move their body in that space so that it's safe and controlled, that's another thing that we focus on at the early childhood level. Here are locomotor movements. Again, this is when we move our bodies from point A to point B. So we're looking for that travel motion using all of these different skills. So we can do a slide or a side step, walking, running, gallop, jump, leap, crab walk, hop, skip, roll. One important thing to notice about our locomotor movements is that it's one thing for us to be able to teach our students how to do it, but we also want to teach that cognitive domain of what it is that they're actually doing. So if I demonstrate a jump, then my preschoolers should be able to tell me what it is I'm doing, in addition to be able to do that move on their own or independently, or with support if that's needed. So we're kind of focusing on the difference between physical education and physical activity, in that we're teaching our students the how, the what, and the why we're doing these activities and these movements. The same is true for our ball skills. When we're focusing on our how to teach these ball skills to our students, we want to teach them about the equipment. So that cognitive side of this is a football or an American football. And when we see an American football, we know what we're supposed to do with it. I'll go European. If we use a football or a soccer ball, if I get a soccer ball out, I want my preschoolers to know that a soccer ball is for kicking. So teaching that concept of different equipment that we are using and how to use it appropriately, those are those foundational skills that we need in addition to knowing how to kick that will really help set our preschoolers up for success. We also want to teach our students play skills. Sometimes play skills come naturally to students and sometimes it doesn't, especially for our students with disabilities. When we can build those foundational skills and help them understand how to play on their own, with peers, with adults, that's really building some skills that are necessary for kids to be included in their classes, on the playground, in a bunch of different settings. So teaching those play skills like taking turns or sharing, those are really important things that are not necessarily gross motor, but still things that we need to be teaching to our students. Water readiness, another great concept that we need to start at an early age. There's a significant amount of childhood deaths and trauma around water safety. So we should be including that in our teaching to make sure that we're helping to keep our kids safe. Part of that might also be educating parents as well. So again, when we're teaching adapted physical education at the preschool level, we are focused on the gross motor skills, but we're including fine motor skills, speech and language, social and emotional, and cognitive concepts. When we look at preschool motor skills, we should be doing different types of assessments to kind of track where our students are and where they need to go. So we want to get this baseline information of what our students can do, their present level of performance, and then give us some options for goals or what we want to work on. Here's an example of a preschool assessment that is used. It's called the LMAP, Louisiana Motor Assessment for Preschoolers. There are 3 different levels. For example, here's the first level is for students who are 2 years old and 6 months, up to 3 years and 5 months. The next level, test level B, is for children who are 3 years and 6 months, up to 4 years and 5 months. So you can see we break down the items that we're looking for. So we want to test and assess our children's locomotor skills, manipulative skills or ball skills, balance, and body and spatial awareness. This particular assessment, I know Melissa and Dr. Lisa talked about assessments earlier. Here's one that can be used for our preschoolers. That's really nice. It'll tell you exactly the content that you're supposed to assess, how many demonstrations and trials, If the procedure is structured or observed, so if you are structurally asking a student, show me how you can walk backwards 8 steps, or you can observe it, maybe they're out playing on the playground and you can see if they can walk backwards 8 steps. And then for our score, they either can do it or they cannot do it. After we finish this assessment, it gives us, we sum the number of passing items, and that'll give us the score for how they are performing. These assessments will also be able to give us an idea of things that we need to work on. So for example, if we're looking at manipulative skills, if we know our student or we observe our student throwing a tennis ball and they can stop a 5-inch ball with their hands, but they cannot catch, maybe that catch is going to be what we're going to work on over the course of the next month, or maybe that's going to be their goal in an IEP. So these are really nice assessments that kind of give you examples of what students are supposed to be able to do at that level, and then give us an idea of what we can teach moving forward. So I'm going to show you an example. This particular student is participating in one of the preschool assessments. So we're going to watch and just kind of see how a preschooler is going to perform on this type of assessment. This particular preschooler is 3 years old and she has Down syndrome. This is one of our graduate students who is now an adaptive PE teacher in Northern California. So we'll go ahead and take a look and watch some of the skills. Okay, can you see the video?
Throw. Your turn.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, throw. Let's back up a little bit.
So you know that cognitive side, she's telling her to throw, and then the student is mimicking the throw.
Nice try.
And she's attempting to throw with a beanbag. It's really important that we have appropriate equipment for our preschoolers, because if we were to give her a tennis ball to throw, it would be bigger than her hand. So a beanbag is a really nice option as a piece of equipment to practice throwing.
Oh, stop. Right here. And throw. Ooh, good one.
And you can also see that she hasn't necessarily picked a dominant hand because she did practice throwing with both the right and the left hands.
Last one. Throw. Ooh, nice one. Thanks for grabbing that for me.
Okay, we'll watch one more skill.
Watch, Kate. Catch.
We're working on the skill of drop and catch.
Hands out. Good. Ready?
Oh, just a catch.
Oh, good try.
So really challenging to see that. Watch the ball, catch the ball. She understands the concept, but is not quite able to do a catch. Really important that we give opportunities for our students to practice these skills. And then when we assess them, we can see what we need to work on.
Almost. Good try. There you go. Let's see.
Okay, we will move on. There's another assessment that we'll look at. So the next one that we're going to look at is the test of gross motor development, the TGMD, currently on its 3rd edition. And this is done by Dr. Dale Ulrich, and it breaks down different locomotor skills and ball skills. So when you see the actual assessment, it'll break down the skill, tell you what materials you're going to need, give you some directions on how to do it, and then we look at those performance criteria. When we're able to pull these preschool assessments and look at the performance criteria, this helps us as educators to really break down those skills and see what part our students are able to do and what part they are not able to do. So with this, for example, when we're looking at that overhand throw, we're looking for the windup that's initiated downward with the hand and the arm. We're looking for that hip rotation and the shoulder rotation to a point where the non-throwing side faces the wall. We're looking at a step in opposition, and then we're looking at the throwing hand follows through after the ball is released across the body. towards the hip of the non-throwing side. When we give this particular assessment, we give our students a practice trial, and then they have 2 scored trials. With that, we get this particular TGMD is a standardized assessment, so we get a standardized score that gives us an idea of where these kids are performing those gross motor skills. So thinking about these performance criteria for the overhand throw, just wanted to give you another view at that before we actually watch a video of a student doing it. Okay, oh, good. All right, so this is going to happen very fast, but this is a combination of all these scored trials for this particular student. This is a 6-year-old female with Down syndrome. She's going to go through 2 trials of each skill in the TGMD-3. So I believe there's 13 of them. So we're going to see it's going to happen very fast, but give you an idea of what these skills might look like for a child with Down syndrome. Looks like it's loading. Okay, so we're looking at strike. That's 2-handed strike. Sorry. Single-handed strike. Dribbling. And a catch. Catching. Kicking. Overhand throw. Underhand toss. Good. Okay, so those are the ball skills that she was practicing. Really important to be able to, for us to demonstrate the movements properly and then give the students a turn to try those different skills. You can see that she has not necessarily mastered any of the skills. She gets the concept, she kind of understands what we're doing, but then from this assessment, that will tell me that I need to focus more on those skills and really break them down. If we're looking at that dynamic systems approach, we want to see her try to throw as hard as she can, strike as hard as she can, throw as far as she can, so that her body will automatically start developing and doing the performance criteria that we're looking for. So for example, of that overhand throw, if I want her to progress in that overhand throw, I'm going to ask her to throw that tennis ball as far or as hard as she can. Then her body will self-organize and be able to eventually get that rotation, get that step in opposition, and that follow through. So again, this is the test of gross motor development. This is standardized for children who are 3 years old to 10 years old. It's a really nice standardized assessment to be able to see what our kiddos can do. When we're assessing and working on gross motor development, I think the most important thing that we have to remember for our early childhood kiddos is that exactly this from Piaget: play is the work of childhood. We want to make these APE sessions, these physical activities, play. We want our students to learn to move their body and to have a good time doing it. So in my opinion, we have one of the best jobs in the world because we get to spend time with these kiddos, and our teaching is play. So whether they're playing on the playground or playing with different equipment, learning how to move their bodies. So instead of thinking on how we can clinically, increase gross motor development, what we really want is to put students in that play environment and help them learn how to move their body. This is a really nice reference about some teaching tips for including children with disabilities. This is put out by NACI, which is the Education of Young Children. So this is in the PowerPoint. If you want to click on it, it'll give you some really nice information on how to include children with disabilities at the early childhood level. Another reference or resource for you to have it was said in my introduction that I taught at some lab schools or practice schools at TCU, and that's where I did my teaching. So I taught preschool adapted PE for 9 years to children who were 18 months to 6 years old, mostly children with Down syndrome, and then also children with other developmental delays, some autism, and other intellectual disabilities. So in my teaching, I came up with some unit plans, a generic lesson plan, and these are some really great preschool resources, different activities that you can introduce if you are teaching preschool as well. So hopefully you'll get these slides and be able to click on these links to see different lesson plans, how you can structure your activities, and how you can kind of set up your year and what different types of activities you can do or different weekly units that you can focus on. So we're not going to spend time right now to look on these, but hopefully we'll get the links. The most important thing I want to share with you are some videos. So we'll get to that in just a second. So again, hopefully you can click on these links, great resources for preschool adapted PE. When we think about planning for activities at the preschool level, we want to integrate as much sensory motor organization as possible because that really helps give our children the opportunity to learn how to move and how to move to learn. We also want to integrate themes. Here at Cal State Long Beach, we are really into thematic lessons because that makes it more fun for our children. So if they're really into superheroes, then maybe we're going to have a theme about superheroes where we're looking at different locomotor skills and we're seeing if we can run like Batman and skip like Superman. Putting thematics to our physical activities is really going to increase buy-in for our preschoolers. So we need to know kind of what they're into, what things that they like. You can ask your students to tell you, you can ask the families, or just do a little research on what is appropriate for children and kind of different things that they're into. When we're planning activities, stations and rotations are really great for these preschool students. If you've got a class of 10 students, or you've got 10 different students coming to you for an activity, when we can break up our activities into different stations and be able to rotate, that really helps our students have an increase in physical activity time and teacher time. So maybe we've got some paraeducators that are helping run these stations and provide feedback to smaller groups of students. Again, we want to focus on those basic gross motor skills to make sure that we're building those foundational blocks to set these children up for lifetime activity. We want to consider curriculum design. So not only is it important for us to teach those introductory sport skills like the ball skills and locomotor skills, we also want to be very creative and see what else we can throw into our units. Like maybe we have a unit on dance or cup stacking or rhythmic movements or yoga. So thinking through this curriculum design and making sure that we're not only teaching sports. Sports are great, but it's not developmentally appropriate for our preschool or really our elementary age students. The sport skills should come in the adolescent phase. So thinking specifically about preschool, we want to focus on fun, different new activities and really introduce students to a myriad of different activities so they can figure out A, how to move, and B, what they enjoy. When we take out hula hoops or jump ropes, we are making our students kind of understand and grasp the concepts of how to use these different equipment, and they can figure out what they enjoy. So with that, again, pulling out a lot of different equipment that is age appropriate. So if we are teaching them kicking, it's not developmentally appropriate for our students to kick an adult-sized soccer ball. So we need to figure out how to modify those pieces of equipment specifically for our preschool age students. And the more we introduce them to, the more they're going to be able to understand how to use the specific pieces of equipment when they get to school age. Another thing we want to consider is classroom management. So especially post-COVID, behavior management has been very challenging for our teachers out in the field. So we need to figure out what we are going to do, how we're going to manage our class, our 30 minutes. And we can do that by using polyspots or cube chairs. Maybe we're doing some stickers or stamps. Maybe we have some token economy. Schedules are huge for these kiddos. So lots of great management tips for our preschoolers. We have to make sure that we integrate that into our classes to really help them be able to participate actively in our PE settings. With this classroom management, some of you might have been on this training last year. I did a whole session on behavior management specifically for students with autism at the preschool level. So that might be something that you have access to, or maybe we can share that as well for some behavior management tips. All right, this is the good part. So hang with me. This is a 12-minute video, but it gives you all of these examples of ways that you can integrate physical activity into classrooms at the preschool level. So I know it's a really long video. Dilara, please stop me if we don't have enough time. Maybe we can share some of it. But I think it's really important for you to be able to see how kids move and different activities that they can do at that preschool level. So we will go ahead and start that video.
The most beautiful girl in town.
Water readiness, learning how to move in general space, outside and inside. Got some walking toys here to really give that support and stability. Striking, instead of using a tee, maybe a cone is more appropriate, as well as a pool noodle, and foam balls are really easy to use. Providing lots of opportunities for movement. Okay, again, hula hooping. So this little girl cannot hula hoop yet, but it was important for her to understand that this is what I do with a hula hoop. Here's a nice little example of putting in music with our activities. And we've got students who are not so happy. So again, that behavior management, how are we going to address these students' behaviors? Okay, lots of modeling, lots of positive reinforcement. The chicken dance, nice little activity. Working together with peers, those social interactions are really great for our kiddos, helping them talk through with each other, talking through these activities.
Say more, push. Ready, go.
Working
Jonas
together.
is gonna go without you. I know, because I'm videoing you, huh? All right, and reach up high.
Again, use of different music to encourage movement. And as the educator or as the teacher, really important for us to do these activities with the kids. So we are demonstrating what we're supposed to be doing and encouraging our students to do it as well. Putting in counting, so thinking about those math concepts.
9, whoops, 10. Oh my goodness, ready?
The more we do these activities, the more they understand the routine of our classes and what our expectations are. You can see a lot of adult health and support is very beneficial at the preschool level.
Go!
The same song that we just did, but this is one class older, so you can kind of see the students are a little bit more organized. They know, again, those expectations, practicing different locomotor skills and orientation skills, moving through space.
Freeze!
Understanding
Put your
start
right
and stop
hand,
concepts.
right foot out.
Hokey
Right
pokey,
foot
working
in,
on
shake it all about.
learning
Well,
right
you
and
do the
left
hokey
side.
pokey and you turn yourself around.
around.
That's what it's all about.
Body
Left
awareness.
foot, left foot in, left
Balance.
foot out, left foot in.
Those super
Shake it
simple
all
activities,
about. You
but
do the
things that
hokey
we can
pokey and
easily
you
put
turn
into our
yourself
classes
around. That's
to
what it's
really
all about.
facilitate growth
Right
right
motor development.
hand. Raina, you want to go behind the kids so you're in it? Right hand in, right hand out.
And you'll notice that
right
most of them are
hand
standing
in.
on a black line. So
Perfect.
again, having
You
those
do the hokey
expectations that
pokey
this
and you
is where
turn
we do
yourself
our
around.
warm-up.
That's what it's all about. Left hand in, left
And they
hand
don't
out,
exactly know their rights and
left
lefts
hand
yet, but the
in.
more we
Shake
use
it
the
all
terminology,
about.
the
You
more they
do the
will
hokey
learn.
pokey and you turn yourself around. That's what it's all about. Right hip. Right hip. Oh, I guess this side for you. Ready?
Okay, if I mute maybe I'll put the volume low. Can you hear me now? Okay, if I mute the video, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so another activity that we're doing is Duck, Duck, Goose, and playing games, putting these kids in different game situations are very important. Using poly spots, I know Melissa talked about that earlier, as a place to stand, so practicing those striking skills. These are lead up skills to a baseball game, getting students to practice all different components so that they may be successful. Jump roping. So again, helping our students to understand this is what I do with a jump rope. This is how I use this piece of equipment. Here's another round of Duck, Duck, Goose. So learning how to take turns, working with our peers, getting that verbal information by saying duck, duck, and goose. This is one of our favorite activities. This would be shadow dancing. So you can see it's definitely makeshift, but we throw up some white sheets and a projector, and students can do some shadow dancing. Here's another dance that we do. This is the 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. This particular video is from the game Just Dance. So we were able to pull up that little video on the screen and encourage movement. Screen time is very challenging with our students these days because a lot of times they just sit in front of a screen. So when we can integrate movement into screen time, that is really ideal because that will help our students be able to understand, oh, even though I'm watching, you know, a show or a movie or whatever, I can still get up and move. So encouraging that, they're able to watch the demonstrations on the screen and then do the demonstrations or do it along with the demonstrations. You can't hear it right now, but they are singing along, and that is working on their vocabulary and their speech and language skills as well. These are our older preschoolers. We saw Kendall earlier, so these guys are 5 and 6-year-old. And then being able to transfer the skills that we learn in a gym setting out into the real world is really important. So we want that generalizability. If we practice running in the gym, we want to also get them out in the outside environment so they can practice those skills as well. Again, here's my little jumper. He is 2 years old with Down syndrome and jumping with 2 feet off the ground. That's pretty advanced skill. So it just kind of shows us that these kids can do these things. We just have to give them opportunities and tons of time to practice. Again, generalizing those skills outside of the gym, learning to run. This particular group, we have some peer buddies, which are great. So working with students with and without disabilities together. So we're focusing on that idea of inclusion. Scooter boards are super fun for kiddos. This is a great little activity, having them hold onto a jump rope and pull them around. They're working on that back strength and their core strength. Plus it's fun. Remember, we want our kiddos to play. So this is a really fun activity to introduce. Aquatics or water readiness. So really important for safety on this one, giving students the appropriate flotation devices and support. You'll notice all of the kiddos had a one-on-one assistant. Here we go, we're working on walking, and you can see there's a bunch of different little tools that we use, like an abdominal belt, Great activity here. We are jumping on bubble wrap and getting that sensory input. Body bowling, very fun, learning to roll our bodies and how to organize that core. Challenging, but the students can do it, figuring it out. And how fun, lots of cause and effect. Oh, one of my favorites, we helped this little one learn how to walk. So this was her first steps walking independently, which is huge. So again, we're giving them the support they need and the opportunities to practice those skills. Melissa showed these earlier as well, spooner boards. So lots of different things we can do to practice stability movements. Here we're doing hopscotch, so some number recognition, integrating those math concepts. This was a Winter Olympics unit where we were ice skating with towels. Again, another opportunity. It would have been really easy for me to put that ball on the tee, but when we give our students the option to do it, they're working on that hand-eye coordination. Here, this group is working on a team game where they are throwing, trying to knock down the hula huts. Really fun activity. You can see the really big cones are providing a barrier. So the students are understanding the concept of we have to stay behind the cones to really get that throwing action in. And they're throwing little bean bags to try to knock down those hula huts. So teamwork, cooperation, working together towards a goal. Dilara, I see it's 9 o'clock. Should I stop now or keep going?
Banu Hocam ne diyorsunuz? Yavaş yavaş belki toparlayabiliriz.
Yeah, no problem. We could go on forever. There's so many different activities to do for these
İzniniz olursa zaten
preschoolers.
biz bunu kapsayıcı fiziksel aktivite.com'da yayınlamak istiyoruz zaten. Öyle de bir bilgi geldi şu anda. İsteyen katılımcılar daha sonra sitemize girip oradan da bu videoyu izleyebilirler tamamını. Size konuşmanızdan dolayı Amanda çok teşekkür ediyorum. Harika bir sunumdu gerçekten. Bizim fikirlerimize fikir de kattınız. Daha nasıl geliştirilebilir diye 2 gündür yapılan tüm esasında bu sunumlar hepimiz için çok ayrı.